My name is Chris LaTondresse, and I'm 28 years old.
And what are you doing right now to make the world a better place? Kind of what's your story?
What's my story? Well, I grew up in a very conservative evangelical home, grew up as a missionary kid in the former Soviet Union for 5 years, came back to the U.S., spent my summers as a Bible camp counselor, and then went on to a Baptist school for my undergraduate education, Bethel University in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I'm very much a part of the evangelical world. What I found, though, in that world as I grew up in it was, especially as it came to our engagement in the world, there tended to be this attitude that our job is to save souls for the world to come, and what happens in this world is less important. And though that's the world that I grew up in, there definitely started to be some dissonance with me with that point of view. I started building relationships with people all over the world, especially in the global South. Spent quite a bit of time in East Africa in particular, and these young people not only became causes for me. When I built relationships with these people, I didn't think poverty, HIV/AIDS. I thought, child soldiers. I didn't think of these people as causes. I thought of these people as friends, and that had a disciplining effect on my theology. I said, I cannot follow the commandment to love my neighbor as myself if I ignore the life circumstances that these people exist in. Not these causes, but these friends of mine. So within the evangelical world, there's, I think, a sea change going on right now, where as more young evangelicals build relationships abroad, not in spite of the fact that we're evangelicals, in fact, because we're evangelicals, because there's that missionary impulse, there's that go into the world and preach the gospel. My generation of evangelicals, much like my millennial peers, are globalized. But so we don't relate to causes, we relate to people with names and faces. We relate to friends. And so that background informs my current work, trying to bring about transformation in the evangelical world at a time when the public image of Christianity is at an all-time low, and the millennial generation is leaving Christianity as a result. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
And what is some of the work you're doing right now? And you talk about that a little bit, and maybe some past jobs that you've had
totally.
as well.
So I'm currently working on a project called Recovering Evangelical, and the goal of Recovering Evangelical is to help millennials put hands and feet to their faith in spite of the big problems happening in the world right now, and also the negative image of Christianity. So to that end, we've built a huge online community, and we're launching an online news and opinion portal, both aimed at connecting that generation, giving that generation a voice, but also offering up an example to the broader evangelical world of what this generation can do when it really applies its faith in the world for the benefit of all people.
And, was there an inspiration for this? Was there maybe a moment that inspired you to do this? You talked about your time in East Africa, or was it more of a gradual thing?
I think it's a commitment rooted in my faith. There are 2,000 verses in the Bible that deal with God's care and concern for the poor. Contrast that with what Christians are often known for in the United States of America. There are only 24 verses in the whole Bible on homosexuality, and even fewer on abortion. But you wouldn't get that idea from looking at the public agenda of the religious right. So for me, this work is very much rooted in my identity as a person of faith. Jesus taught that we were supposed to live life for the benefit of those who he called the least of these, and that the substance of our faith would be measured against that commitment. And I take that seriously. So it's as much a philosophy or a point of view as it is an event, though there have definitely been, hundreds of relationships and experiences along the way that have moved me from a point of view that would have said, my job on this earth is to save people from this earth, to my job on this earth is to play a role in advancing what, I believe God's best hopes and dreams are. A vision that includes peace and love and justice, especially for those at the margins.
Yeah, and it seems like inherent to that work is dealing with a lot of diverse groups. And so you want to talk a little bit about how you've kind of worked across traditional boundaries to get things done?
Yeah, there's no question. I'm really glad you brought up the question of, you could call it diversity. I think about the world as being divided into tribes. We're divided into tribes by our political views, our religious views, our ethnic background, gender. The world is divided in a lot of different tribes, and these tribes are what keep us from being able to solve big problems. There's not a Muslim solution to HIV/AIDS. There's not a Christian solution to poverty. There's not a Republican solution to empowering youth. There's not a Democratic solution to gang violence. If there's going to be solutions to any of these big issues, people have to figure out how to work together. Now, my background is more religious, so I have a passion for trying to figure out what it takes to build bridges both between religious communities and also how to figure out how to take diverse religious communities and get them to work together, even if they disagree on things like theology, work together on issues of common cause. So, I think there's a real opportunity for us to take a look at the great faith traditions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and when these religions bring their best stuff to the table, these are virtues and values that you can identify with and resonate with, whether you're a person of faith or no faith at all. Things like love, justice, forgiveness, compassion, transparency, a strong orientation towards helping those at the margins. These are things we can agree on, even if the particulars of why we are passionate about these things might be different. So I think it's also worth mentioning that the 21st century, far from being a post-religious century, may very well be the most religious century that we've ever experienced. The two fastest growing religions in the world right now, or religious movements, are Pentecostal Christianity and Islam, in the parts of the world that are growing the fastest. If we don't figure out how to work within these great faith traditions to, for me, Christianity, if we can't figure out how to work within these great faith traditions and help them bring the best stuff to the table to help them figure out how to bring into the future a kind of Christianity that benefits the world, to work within Islam, to bring an Islam that benefits the world, then the 21st century is going to continue to be filled with conflict, and I would say actually increasingly religious conflict, which will be one of the primary obstacles in actually addressing the big issues that many of us agree are big issues. So reconciliation is important. It's not just a virtue. Reconciliation is a strategy. Bridge building has to be a part of what we do. Great.
I'm kind of shifting topics a little bit. What are some of the greatest challenges you see facing young people and basically this millennial generation?
Biggest challenges? Well, I think that the biggest challenges facing this generation in particular. I think of the big issues facing the world, and any big issue that's just facing us in the world in general: HIV/AIDS, poverty, global climate change, war. These are issues that affect youth on a planet that is increasingly and disproportionately young. Much of the planet is going through youth booms, so the big issues that affect us all, especially and disproportionately affect youth. I think in particular for youth, though, in this moment, is just this question of what the generational passing of the baton is going to look like. In this country, it's about handing over institutions. Around the world, it's about things like jobs. I just got done working for an organization that does youth development work in the Middle East. The Middle East is going through an unprecedented youth boom right now. And the biggest problem there is that the economy is predicated on 20th century assumptions, and all of those jobs are in the hands of people that were born before 1965. Meanwhile, the largest population group is young people, and there's not mechanisms in place to transfer economic opportunity in the hands of young people. There's neither the training nor oftentimes the generational will of older generations to pass on some of that opportunity. I think everyone can look at that and realize how volatile that currently is and will continue to become. But I think access to economic opportunity within a generational frame is a major issue facing young people around the world, and in this country as well.
Great.
So.
And wrapping up, kind of following up on that question, what advice do you have for a young person who wants to get more involved in their community or youth mobilization of the political process? What advice would you give to them?
I'd say I've got a habit of developing friendships with people that are younger than me. A lot of folks in my parents' generation kind of look at me as this young guy that, is just doing it. I develop relationships with folks younger than me. I tell them all the time, you just got to go out there and do it. And don't just do it. Find a group of friends, pull a group of people together that either on the basis of the fact that you guys are already passionate about something, or, and I actually think this is better, on the basis of the fact that you're all already friends, and find something to be about together and just do it. Just go after it. I think it's much easier to critique than to do. But yeah, I tell people just to do it.